Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a new episode of the X Button, Season 4, Episode 27. I am your host, Alejandro, and with me, no guest again, it usually has been for most of this summer, even though I got Eric last minute to join me last week. But thank you, everyone, for coming in, because today's going to be like an interesting episode, because it also kind of is a sort of normal episode, but also kind of coming with an announcement of what the future of the show will be, at least in a little bit of the short term. So just to kind of not bury the lead, the show is gonna go on a brief hiatus starting after this episode, and it will not come back until potentially the final week of August. Let's just say, without having to give too many details, some live things have come up that are gonna have me step away from being able to record, as a lot of important stuff work wise have kind of now being sprung up on me that it needs a little bit of my attention. And especially right now with me just kind of taking on the show, and the thing that I'm gonna be doing work related will take a lot of my time now. Is my commitment to the show will have to be put to the side for a bit. But I foresee a return on that final week of August, around kind of the time where my podcast co-host Paul, who was the one that has been on paternity leave since middle of May, as he has been taking care of his kid, and finally moving on from that paternity leave, as he's also kind of going back to the workplace and things like that. He had told me he's gonna be ready around that time. We'll definitely play it by ear to see we return around the time that he said he was gonna return. But yeah, this is gonna be the last episode, at least for the foreseeable next month, a week or week two. It'll be it just so happens that we were able to keep this show going almost continuously, with the only exception being the holiday break in December, and no breaks. And now this is gonna be the first, due to extenuating circumstances, hiatus that wish I could talk more about it, but I definitely can't. But yeah, so just I didn't want to just stop the episode cold turkey, because I didn't even know if I was going to record this episode and if I was just going to record kind of an announcement. But I decided, you know what, I still have the time to be able to at least record a solo episode, at least for it to go into the feed and into a video, and then I will see what happens next. But at least when it comes to other things, like me staying over writing at Season Gaming right now, I haven't written for them for a while, but I'm still going to keep writing for them. My next review that I'm scheduled to do for them is still Star Wars Outlaws, which comes out ironically that the week that I'm seeing kind of a return potentially. But then yeah, until then, at least when it comes to the X-Bound, yeah, it's gonna go on its mid-season break, which, if I'm perfectly honest, people, I had always wondered what the show would look like if it went on a summer break, especially with so little being happening. And obviously, the last few summers, at least 2022, we made it work with Paul, even though we had a little bit more free time around that time, and there was still some annoying news to kind of cover that allowed us to kind of keep doing the show around that kind of empty time. And let's not forget the amazing summer we had last year, that there was always something to talk about thanks to all the games that we're releasing. And obviously this summer has been more akin to what I'm used to a summer looking. And it just so happens that I'm feeling pretty confident about this upcoming break happening around the time where I'm yeah, we could take a break right now. It's nothing's really happening right now in the world of gaming, especially with other more important pressing stuff happening in the real outside world that I'm not gonna touch upon, the things that happen over the weekend over in the United States. But we'll see. Maybe it'll be a month, maybe I can come back around the time of Gamescom, who knows. I have to see where my life is based on the things that are gonna be happening. But yeah, definitely this will be your last episode, at least for the next month. So yeah, and so yeah, let's get the show on the road, at least, because it may be a short one, but I definitely wanted to talk about a few stuff. So yeah, this is just a reminder that this is the X-Bottom Podcast, our gaming podcast that posts every Fridays from 10 a.m. onwards, God willing. Available in the YouTube channel Escape Gaming, as well as most audio services around the world, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and the like. You can find links in the RSS feed at tinyurl.com/escapegaming. If you enjoy our show, give us a like and subscribe. Obviously, now you know. Yeah, you will like and subscribe, even though you won't receive a new episode, at least for the next month. So yeah, what have I been playing? I've been playing a bunch of stuff. I was playing Luigi's Mansion 2. I did that like a lot over the 4th of July break, and I kind of briefly mentioned it last week while I had Eric in the show. And it is a game that I really like, but it is such a handheld game at its core. And I have gotten to the point where me playing the Nintendo Switch, unless I'm playing like a super highly anticipated game, like let's say a Mario Wonder or a Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, that I am dying to play, or like I assume Metroid Prime 4 will be, that any game that's kind of like beneath that tier that I still enjoy is like I usually save my Nintendo Switch games to just I save them for whenever I travel. In the rare cases that they happen, yes, and I kind of want to always keep games unfinished in the Switch, so I know what that I can expect to play something while I'm kind of like traveling, and that's kind of like where Luigi's Mansion 2 with its design, like the level design and its bite-sized like mission structure and all that, kind of like gives itself away to that. And I was kind of like considering doing like the whole thing of I'll have TV playing in the background, maybe playing handheld, I kind of do it that way, but I just decided to just play other stuff from that case. So right now, like I'm kind of putting Luigi's Mansion 2 in the to travel shelf. Not because I don't like it, it's just that it just feels that it's the right kind of game for that. And when I was playing it while I was at a lake house during July 4th, like at night, it was like, oh, this feels right. This kind of feels right. The kind of right game for this, for what I'm currently doing. So yeah, it's like it's still a pretty good game. I'm still debating on if I want to finish and then playing Luigi's Mansion 3 eventually, but that's another game that I haven't finished, and I'm also saving for an eventual travel. So that's just kind of where the Switch is. And me having the other consoles, I feel like I'm pretty well served. There's just way too many games. And yes, it's a joke at this point that Final Fantasy is just part of my personality and part of my psyche. I just keep like engaged in that franchise, like no matter what. And I've been like on an endless trajectory for me to finally get the platinum for the PS5 version of Final Fantasy VII Remake / Intergrade, and I am now 2 trophies away from finally getting that platinum. I just need to finish the game on hard, and I need to I need to do the final BR challenge, which is the one that you have to do the summons back to back to kind of fight the ultimate weapon, which is like a big robot. And I did find a video that allowed me to get to the 4th stage of that battle, at least with kind of like my setup. But one of the things that I was missing was there was some materia that I didn't like, especially MP up, which is like that gives you kind of like more MP points for you to use magic. I needed to have a little bit more, or basically I had my MP ups that I needed to put in the 2 characters that needed to be at least like at full level, so that I had enough materia points that could help me by the time I got to the 4th stage of this 5-stage absolute madness of a boss rush. And because they were not fully level, instead of me having to be like, I'm gonna rerun this one BR challenge over and 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 over until I grind up, it's like that is just such an annoying thing to do. I was like, you know what, if I'm gonna be grinding this thing to level up, I might as well just start the hard mode, because I kind of like had an idea of I wanted to finish the final VR challenge, the hard VR challenge, because they give you a pretty excellent weapon from what I understand, kind of the Golden Margar. It's a Norse style name, as you kind of like know and expect from like Final Fantasy. I recognize the name also from Final Fantasy 16 also had this weapon. It's like I kind of wanted to have it so it'd be like, okay, then I can have the super strong weapon that I can use during the hard mode. But I was like, you know what? It's like, might as well start with the hard mode. And so I've been like playing under hard mode. Now I'm in chapter 13 out of 18, and I will say that playing with a lot of my materia fully leveled up and all the characters are level 50 as it should be, because I remember trying hard mode when I was like level 35 and being stumped. When you hit the max level in your characters and then go through the hard mode and then kind of engage with the strategy of using the combat's entire system like to its fullest, with like the what you need to do to stagger an enemy or to pressure an enemy, what are the elemental affinities for a specific enemy, so you can like maybe use magic, or maybe use the magic with your elemental weapon depending on the character you have it, so you can like still like strategize well. Like I have a greater appreciation for Final Fantasy VII Remake's combat now playing in the hard mode, because of like how satisfying it is to figuring out a strategy that it's not just wailing at tankier enemies that can sometimes one-shot you. You can like, if you plan your strategies right with the characters that you use, what material you put in certain enemy and certain characters, and how you can whatchamacallit, how you can interact with each character as you kind of like wail on an enemy, kind of like using synergy materia, where if you use like an AP attack in with one of your characters, then like whatever character you put the synergy materia on, if you have it on a magic, they will automatically cast magic on that enemy without like wasting their MP. And that has been like the big difference between life and death in some of these like boss battles that towed the line between kind of being exhilarating survival like rushes to kind of like scuffed rounds. You're like, how the heck did I was able to survive this one? My AP meters were not filling up. I was being like attacked randomly. They were attacking when I was trying to use magic and all that, and somehow you kind of pull it off. It's like there's a certain exhilaration you can find in the hard mode that I'm really appreciating, and now I'm like eagerly anticipating to see how this goes when I finally do the hard mode for Rebirth, because I'm still, for some reason, I still have it in my mind that I kind of want to platinum that game, even though it's like the Rebirth Platinum now is kind of like becoming notorious in the trophy in trophy circles as one of the hardest trophies to achieve, especially because the BR challenges in that game are like significantly harder than the ones that are in Remake, which were already pretty kind of pretty hard. And I'm like, in that game, having more character combinations, having the synergy attacks and the synergy system on top of that, and sometimes you need to be very specific how you attack enemies to get them to be pressured. I'm like, I may have to do like a guide for that one, see if someone can find like a way to, the easy way to play through hard mode. I already kind of seen some videos pop up in my in kind of my YouTube feed for that, so I'm like, oh, I'm definitely gonna be using that. But somehow people, despite me having reviewed Final Fantasy VII Rebirth for 132 hours, platinuming Final Fantasy 16 this year while also reviewing its final DLC, and getting through the hard mode of Crisis Core, for some reason I'm still not bored of Final Fantasy. I still haven't like committed to returning to Final Fantasy 14, as I still have to go through A Realm Reborn. Obviously the Dawn Trail finally happened. The file size, on at least on PS5, has grown for Final Fantasy 14 because they added new, on top of adding the new expansion inherently, they added the new graphic style. So basically the game already looks prettier, but this is still something that's gonna haunt me for the rest of my days. I regret having bought all the expansions at the cheap price that I did, because that voided my free trial, and the free trial now covers the entire Realm Reborn, the first and the second expansions. And I usually find that way to be kind of be like at your leisure pace without having to commit to paying. You can kind of get to all this content, and then if you really like it when you're finally here, then you can buy then the expansion and then start paying the monthly subscription. But then by that point, I would have already gotten over the hump that is A Realm Reborn, which is such a trying, very exhausting like introduction to that MMO. And a lot of people always praise the DLCs specifically, where A Realm Reborn is fine, but it's like the DLCs are what make Final Fantasy 14 goated. And I'm screwing myself because it's like I have to pay for the subscription if I want to play through A Realm Reborn. So then it's like, because I have a hard time staying engaged with A Realm Reborn. It's like, oh man, it's like it's such a huge mountain to climb, and then other games kind of come out, and it's like I wasted $15 to pay for the whatchamacallit, for the subscription, and I'm like, damn it. Kind of wish I had not been so. I tell people, when you come from the Destiny world where they overcharge so much for expansions, and then you see that, oh yeah, buy Endwalker, the final expansion that came out before Dawn Trail, for $30, and you get everything together. It's like, when you make the math, it's like, that sounds like an insane deal. I'm definitely buying that. Just I didn't know that buying that automatically voided your free trial. So, which that's also, it's so funny that it's been like almost a year since that happened to me. And I told that story here in the podcast, that I'm like, well, you know what? It's like, well, like it is what it is. But yeah, it's like still, I think by the next time that I do an episode, which, by the way, people, I think if you're here right now, that what I'm really thinking about, especially what I'll be doing, instead of having to wait a month, I think I'm at least until the end of August. It may be like a week in or week out. It'll be bi-weekly until like until I further notice. So I may come back with another episode within 2 weeks. Right now, as I'm still trying to figure all this out, and you're kind of like privy to that as I'm trying to do this. But yeah, it's like maybe by the next time you listen to this, I'll be in. I'll have Platinum Final Fantasy VII Remake. But yeah, I'm recording this on Friday, so by this time, like 3 big Game Pass games have kind of dropped, and I have basically like tried all 3 of them. So those 3 games are Flintlock, The Siege of Dawn, Dungeons of Hinterberg, and Kunitsu-Gami, Path of the Goddess. So kind of like kind of in this order, from basically from least to best. Flintlock: The Siege of Dawn is basically a Souls-like that kind of mixes a sort of pirate corsair style aesthetic with like Mesopotamian, kind of like godlike creatures that kind of show up, and it's a Souls-like as it can get. It's like it's not brutally hard, but it's kind of like, yeah, it's over. It's like you attack with the shoulder buttons. You have dodges. You have like a limited flask. If you get killed, if you have experience points, they remain there, so you have to like rush back into where you got killed to recover that currency. And if you die a second time, you're gonna lose them also. It's like it's typical. It has kind of like the typical Souls trappings, but the one thing I appreciate is the nimbleness of how your character kind of moves around. It's like there's a lot of platforming. There's a lot of there's a kind of a nimbleness to the movement as you kind of fight and kind of like move around. It's kind of like can be a really fun. The tone I'm really not vibing with so far. My buddy Sebastian kind of made the joke that he made the joke that he has like a review Discord that of people that he knows in the industry that was playing this for review, that they were saying like, yeah, this is like the like God of War, but on the way of Wish.com, and I made the, yeah, this is kind of like the Walmart version / Aldi version of a Souls-like God of War style game, and it's pretty apt. This is like if you know what a swimming in sevens game is, this is exactly that. This is a game that is good, decent, at worst okay, nothing to really spend a lot of money on, but is the kind of perfect game that Game Pass can kind of like alleviate kind of like the risk taking of you getting a game that doesn't like rise above anything, but it's like at least still pretty decent. This is exactly the kind of game that Game Pass, for good or ill, it's gonna it's basically what that service is kind of known for now, which is like, oh yeah, it's like if there has been like the joke that if third parties kind of put their games on Game Pass, usually is because they're like not worried, they're kind of worried that their game is just not gonna do well like out on the market. So that kind of like at least getting the Game Pass back kind of gives a cushion for that, for these whatchamacallit, for these kind of games to kind of exist, and they can still get some money in the case of this game bombing. And I can't imagine this game's gonna sell well, because it's like reception was like 64 open critics, 70 Metacritic, so it's like still like this would be considered mid in the Sebastian scale if you would know him. But it's like I see something in it, but it's not something that I find really super compelling. Right now it's like I tried it just as out of curiosity. It was only 17 gigs on Xbox. So it runs perfectly fine. Art style kind of sucks. Character, it's very a lot of people are already kind of blaming the Sweet Baby Ink thing, also because a lot of people are showing their colors as being racist, and they just use DEI/SBI as kind of like their smoke screen to their racism. But it's like beyond that, it's like it's just okay. It's just a fine game. Then Dungeons of Hinterberg. This was a game that I know Paul was like really excited about, just kind of based on the art style. I didn't really know much about it, only that I knew it was coming to Game Pass, and I was like, okay, cool, I'll check it out whenever it comes out. And there's just something about Dungeons of Hinterberg as this like junior law firm going on vacation to a place that has some special dungeons that you kind of do as you go through like different times, and it kind of being like a sort of kind of character action based game, but it's like super simple on that, but like with a really cozy art style, a really cozy soundtrack, no dialogue, absolutely, but it's just so charmingly unique that unlike Flintlock, and I'm like, let's see if I continue. It's like, I think I'm gonna try to see a little bit more of Dungeons of Hinterberg, because it's like I need that kind of game right now in my life of beyond what I'm doing with Remake, something that's a little bit more colorful based on things that are happening. And it's like while the fact that there's no dialogue means that I have to kind of read a lot, being like, okay, it's like maybe I need to be in the mood of that, kind of like how it plays. It's appealing to me. It's kind of I was making a joke with Sebastian that any game to me that gives you combat that's in the face buttons instead of R1 and R2 already kind of gets my attention inherently, because I feel we have reached the saturation of Souls-like and Souls-likes, where every action game feels like has to be under that umbrella, that I'm like, let's not just all just do the From Software style action game. It's like, don't oversaturate. We can have them, but definitely do the other ones. I definitely want more combo-based games. And although Dungeons of Hinterberg is not a combo-based game, at least in the traditional sense, I appreciate that their fast and strong attacks are like in the face buttons, because otherwise, if it had been R1 or 2, I would have just rolled my ass as it's another one of these games. So you can certainly have too much of a good thing, people. And me reaching to the point where no Souls like feels as good as Elden Ring now, especially after me playing through Shadow of the Earth Tree. I'm like, at least Dungeons of Hinterberg has that, and I kind of want to see how they explain the weirdness of this game. That is like the first summer vacation game that I played in a while since probably Mario Sunshine. So it's like that kind of vibe I haven't seen in a while. So that's why I'm a little bit more eager to keep playing this one. But the one game from the 3 that came out this week that it's more, it's absolutely, I would say the best of the 3 that I played so far is absolutely Kunitsu-Gami Path of the Goddess from Capcom, that was revealed at the showcase for Xbox 2 years ago, if I remember, or was it? No, I think it was last year. Yes, in 2023, 2 showcases ago. So this was always an interesting one, because when you first saw it at that showcase, without knowing everything, people were like, is this the return of Onimusha? Because it's a kind of like sort of samurai aesthetic, even though Onimusha was like a little grittier and art style from like what I remember. So it was like, okay, it's a new IP from Capcom. Cool. It's like, I'm glad that Capcom is like the Japanese company right now that have fit a perfect cadence where obviously they're remaking a bunch of Resident Evil games. They're releasing newer Resident Evil games. The quality of all those Resident Evil games has been like relatively top notch, with Resident Evil 4 Remake in particular giving them like a lot of praise last year. I mean, it got a freaking Game of the Year nomination at the Game Awards. So it's like that tells you a lot about the level of quality that game has. The return of Street Fighter, the relative miss that was Dragon's Dogma 2 for me, but it's like that's just a personal thing, that is just not what I was expecting of it. But there's a lot of people that really like Dragon's Dogma 2, so I don't want to discredit it, and it reviewed really well. Exoprimal, I would say it's probably as their quote-unquote newer IP that they have released recently, that came out last year around this time in the summer. And reviewed a little tepidly. And they already announced that they're no longer going to support it after a year of support. It's like, that's probably the only miss Capcom has had in probably the last half decade, which has been kind of like a constant revolving door of hit after hit after hit after hit, and good game after good game after good game. And I would say Kunitsu-Gami kind of fits into that, another good to great game that they have released. And the thing that it makes it more interesting is that Kunitsu-Gami is like a hybrid game that's character action based game where you can do combos and all that, but you also have to strategize with what you do. With like some characters you find on the field, they kind of move around. That reminds me a lot of something like Plants vs Zombies, and then you can combine that with a really interesting horror aesthetic that's very colorful. And well, I don't know what the hell is happening with this story as a game. Is like, I was not expecting to really buy it with like with the mix that this game is, because thankfully, like playing something like Final Fantasy VII Remake that is also like a hybrid of, yes, you slash at enemies, but to kind of build your ATB meter for them to execute the attacks and moves that are actually gonna do real damage. This is literally a split of doing some small combo moves and then a strategy element where you're moving around pawns. You kind of like upgrade them on the fly to make like a normal just character to be like a woodsman, that they can start hacking at demons as you're trying to like move this sort of goddess creature through like a path. That's what's called Path of the Goddess, duh. As you go through like these different levels, and then then it's kind of like it has like a time system where it's like, okay, during the day you can kind of like move around like this area, set up perimeters and all that, and then when at night hits, that's kind of like where the demons start showing up, and then you have to like either hack at them. But if you're only trying to do this game as a hack and slash and not engage in the strategy, you're gonna get screwed. This is a game you absolutely like. The combat is there for you to like kind of like level up the playing field, but you absolutely need to strategize. You need to make sure that you have everyone equipped with like the best that they can be. You have to like make sure that you're gonna have your pawns set up in specific areas that are gonna like take care of like the wave after wave after wave after wave of enemy in a way that at first was a little complicated, but the more I started grasping with the system, the more it kind of started making sense. So that's when I realized, man, Capcom really got something here, and I'm really happy that especially at $50, they were able to do something very unique, play with the price that they were doing. Obviously, they have the Game Pass bag, which obviously that could have. I understand why they put it in Game Pass, because it's such a unique, weird game, not from an established IP. So they kind of like mitigated the risk there. But unlike what I thought of Exoprimal, that was like just a live service, wave-based shooter where you compete with other co-op teams as you're mowing down waves of dinosaur after dinosaur after dinosaur after dinosaur, and the art style was like so utterly ugly and forgettable and bland. But reminded me that the armors reminded me a little bit of Anthem, but Anthem obviously looked prettier, even though that game sucked. Kunitsu-Gami is definitely another risk that they took, and I'm definitely from these three games, definitely Dungeons of Hinterberg and Kunitsu-Gami are the ones that I'm a little bit more eager to keep playing a little bit more of. Right now, I smelled the platinum for remake so close that the only reason why I didn't keep playing these other two games was because I kind of just want to finally get done with remake and add that platinum to my belt after it's been staring me for so long. But those are the two games that I'm like, okay, from the servings of Game Pass that I received this week, especially a week after like the price hike, and people wondering, okay, is Game Pass still worth it? And to me, it's like the price hike, because I was already a subscriber, hasn't kicked in yet. That's gonna kick in halfway through September, from what I understand. These are the kind of games that, at the very least, if it had just been Flintlock, I wouldn't have subscribed for this. The fact that Flintlock came in with like this package that also included Dungeons of Hinterberg, Kunitsu-Gami for me, which I was already had a little bit more of an eye on. This is the kind of thing that I'm like, okay, I'd be willing to at least on a case-by-case basis, like Xbox loves doing. It's kind of be like, okay, that does seem appealing to me. I'll sub for this month, and since I've still subbed, it's like, okay, I'll still keep eating what you're feeding me. And I know that Age of Mythology is Reborn. That's coming like very early in September, around the time before I need to re-up, or whenever they start charging me the new price. That is something that I'm really interested in. I'm interested in Indiana Jones. So there's still stuff, but I need to keep looking at whatever the drops are like at the beginning of the month or like end of the month, where you're like, this is what's coming for the rest of the month. That's going to be determining if I keep subscribed for Game Pass. But I'm glad Game Pass allowed me the chance to try these three games. That's kind of like that was the reason why I bought a Series X. At least I want to have the best console available to at least experience whenever I'm being given some of these free stuff. And I know at least Path of the God is based on the demo, because I tried it. I didn't mention it in the last episode. I did try the demo, and that's when I found interest. Had I not known that was going to be a Game Pass, this would have been one that I would have done the split thing with Paul, because I did find it interesting enough, and it being $50, it would have been like an equal 25 split. The fact that it was on Game Pass and I was already kind of sold on the demo was like perfect for me. Been saving a lot of money, so which I kind of need now. But yeah, it's like I definitely recommend from these three. I highly recommend Path of the Goddess from these three if you have Game Pass. Dungeons of Hinterberg, there's something to it that I also recommend. And Flintlock is like, if you're in the mood for a 7, definitely play Flintlock. So that's all basically what I've been playing, a little bit here and there. And I'll definitely talk more with you guys when I return 2 weeks from now. So now that I made that decision, instead of waiting for the full month, I think I can do 2 weeks. And now it's time for some quick headlines, because kind of one of the things that has been happening around this time of the year is that things are just so damn slow right now that I feel just headlines are just things worth noting about. So kind of like, for example, one of the headlines that I saw was that there was an artist that claimed that a 5th Crash Bandicoot game was canceled after they were working on Crash 4. And he says, someday folks will hear about the Crash 5 that never was, and it's gonna break hearts. That to me, it's like a heartbreaker because it's like, I love Crash 4. Love Crash 4, especially after loving Crash 1, 2, and 3, and then that series kind of going relatively dormant after a couple middling PS2 games that happened outside of Naughty Dog, and Crash Bandicoot 4 being like the perfect sequel that captured perfectly what made Crash 1, 2, and 3 special while still being better. And then like what they did with Toys for Bob, that they were like, okay, you're gonna be helping with Warzone now. So it's like that's still pretty sad, and I don't know if under the Activision umbrella under Microsoft, like Crash Bandicoot could ever really come back. I know there's like rumors that we're finally gonna start getting the Activision Blizzard games finally showing up on Game Pass. The thing is, I already own a bunch of them on PlayStation, so it's like that doesn't that doesn't really move the needle for me more. I'm more like interested whenever Black Ops 6 shows up. But it's like will they, could they, like, whenever they put Crash or the Crash Insane trilogy and 4 on Game Pass, could they use it as a gauger to see, are they gonna gauge interest to see if then they revive Crash 5, because they basically own it. They own Crash, so that's still, it still bums me out. It's like, and again, it's like, oh, funny going back, all this goes all the way back to the very first episode of the Xbox when we returned in May 2021. That was when we talked about like Toys for Bob being put in the Call of Duty sweatshop, which sucks so much. But yeah, it's like I'm not optimistic, especially with what Microsoft has been doing, that now the Eye of Sauron is over them, so they kind of need to like start making money. The price hike to Game Pass and then them eliminating day one releases on the other tiers, kind of like signaling that they really need to start making money, and that's because it's like the money they're leaving on the table by giving everything for free is kind of like a problem. But yeah, could eventually they get to the point where they give us a 5th Crash game? I would love to, because it's like, when I was still optimistic, whenever the announcement of Microsoft acquiring Activision was made, it's like a lot of people were like hoping that is like, because they need content because of Game Pass, this probably means that they're gonna liberate a bunch of these IPs, but who knows? We'll see. Then another headline, yeah, they already confirmed when the Call of Duty Black Ops 6 multiplayer beta dates are gonna be. So the first date for the Black Ops 6 beta is going to be on August 30th until September 4th. And that's going to be, that early access is going to be for people, anyone who pre-orders the game. Or if you're a Game Pass subscriber, automatically you're going to have access to that beta. And then the next week, you're gonna have access to the open beta from September 6th to September 9th, and that's gonna be open for everyone. So it's like no console is gonna get exclusive access to the beta this time. The only thing that anyone can get any sort of benefit of it is you're a Game Pass subscriber, which is like yeah, it's like you can get it at the same time as people that get to pre-order it over on PlayStation or on PC. So, and technically, I think if you're on PC, if you're on Game Pass, you would access it, because you know how PC and Game Pass are so intertwined, especially now that Xbox owns both. So I'm really curious to see how the new movement feels for Black Ops 6. So, and man, thinking about like the beta, I forgot to talk about Concord. People, the fact that I didn't want to talk about Concord should tell you everything about what I feel about Concord. So, another headline, funny one. Resident Evil 7 on iOS has reportedly been purchased by fewer than 2,000 people. This is so funny considering that Capcom recently had a showcase where they detailed more about Kunitsu-Gami, where they showed the Dead Rising remake, which actually looks pretty good, and that's happening somewhere in the middle of September. And then they spent a whole time being like, yeah, let us show you the iOS version of Resident Evil 7 before telling you that the director of Resident Evil 7 is the one that's doing Resident Evil 9, or the next mainline Resident Evil. It's just clear a lot of people are just not gonna buy a AAA game of this level and caliber on an iOS. It just won't happen. It's like, I appreciate people trying to kind of like making console games work on like a device a lot of people own. So kind of like just the idea of having something of high quality on the go is like pretty impressive. But at the end of the day, it's like I feel the stigma of playing something on the AAA level or like big budget level will always be more like leaning more towards playing it on a big screen, or at least on a PC and not on a phone. And this kind of sales, especially for a game that sold relatively well, like Resident Evil 7, is like that should tell you everything about kind of like there's just no interest to play that kind of game there. So yep, sorry for Resident Evil 7, but at least we know Resident Evil 9 is coming. So let me see what other news we got going, because it's like I tell you, this is the time of like the weird news as they're happening. So yeah, let's see what else we got. Oh yeah, this one's kind of important. Amazon is offering everything needed to play Xbox without a console for $69. Nice. So yeah, this was kind of announced that they were doing like this promotion now that Xbox has finally launched cloud gaming, and there's a native Xbox cloud gaming app that you can get from a Fire Stick, and the Fire Stick from Amazon already can connect to Bluetooth controllers. So basically, if you have an Xbox One, an Xbox Series S and X controller, or a PlayStation 4 or 5 controller, and you enable Bluetooth, you can kind of connect it there. Now they're like the idea finally of, oh yeah, you can finally start playing a bunch of Xbox Cloud gaming games or Game Pass games with only like as little buy-in as possible. It's like now you got a deal. If you didn't own a Fire Stick, a lot of people are praising that the quality of the cloud gaming via the Fire Stick is actually shockingly good. I remain skeptical that that's gonna be the universal experience like across the board, because obviously data centers are different depending on the city you are. Internet situation is different if you're in the middle of the United States or like in a coastal elite city or like at least a more metropolitan area. Around the world, like internet has not been is not universally stable yet. I know that's kind of like the future, but this is finally kind of getting there. Regardless, so it's like at least if you want to give it a try for it's very cheap. If you don't want to buy a Series S, which for what Sebastian was telling me, like his Costco's selling them for like $150 with a headset still, and they still remove units because there's a certain there is a certain stigma about trying to buy something on the cheap. It's not as like one would think they would sell more, but I think when it comes to high-end gaming, there's still like a stigma of why that still doesn't move units regardless, and also brand power is important. We'll see how that proves. It's like I know they were saying that they're like downscaling, promoting that they're selling consoles over in the EMEA territories, which are around like Europe and around all those areas, because they're getting trounced by the competition. They're just not selling consoles there, and this is Microsoft's gambit of getting Xbox literally everywhere. The fact that a lot of people are kind of praising fairly well what they're doing is like at least they got their way. Whenever we get to the perfect future where internet is just perfect, when internet and latencies are just perfect, and they are basically ahead of the curve for that. So can't wait to hear more impressions, and people kind of get that going. And then let's see what else we got in the headlines. Disney reportedly victim to a 1 terabyte data breach. Maybe we'll find out stuff about games in there. Who knows? So then we got, let's see what else we got. Tell people there is like there really is nothing. There really is nothing. So yeah, those are the quick at least of note. So those are kind of like the quick headlines that I can kind of think of for now. So now that news headlines are done, let's read the releases for the weeks of July 21st, and because I already said 2 weeks, all the way till August 3rd. So let me see, I'm just making sure I got everything. Right, so on July 22nd we got the new Denpa Man coming to Switch. We got Ete or ET, I don't know, it's just ETE, coming to PC on July 23rd. We got F1 Manager 2024 coming to PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and S, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC on July 23rd. We got Ramen Food Fighter Arena coming to PC on July 23rd. We got The Star Named EOS coming to PS5, Series X, Switch, and PC on July 23rd. Arranger, a role puzzling adventure coming to PS5, Switch, PC, and Mac coming on July 25th. Earth Defense Force 6 coming to PS5, PS4, and PC on July 25th. From what I understand, that game was supposed to come out much earlier, and it got delayed. Kingdom Rush 5 Alliance coming to PC, iOS, and Android on July 25th. Thrasher coming to Quest 3, Quest 2, and PC on July 25th. Tokyo Xanadu X Plus coming to Switch on July 25th. One Piece Odyssey, the Dragon Quest style turn-based RPG that came out to other consoles last year, coming to July 26th. We got Operation Tango coming to Switch on August 1st. We got Star Wars Bounty Hunter, the Aspire made remaster, coming to PS5, Series X and S, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC on August 1st. We got Thank Goodness You're Here coming to PS5, PS4, Switch, and PC on August 1st. We got Tomba Special Edition coming to PS5, Switch, and PC on August 1st. And then we got the Mortuary Assistant coming to PS5, Series X and S, PlayStation 4, Xbox One on August 2nd. So reading at this entire list, the only thing that would be morbidly curious for me would probably be the Star Wars Bounty Hunter game, depending if it's good, because Aspire unfortunately just recently released the Battlefront collection for the 2004 and 2005 Battlefronts that was so bad that I'm like, well, it's like I cannot trust them to be like it's a Russian roulette, so I have to wait to see if it's good. At least it's a cheap price compared to like the Battlefront games that were 30 something and were pretty bad. So that would be like the only thing, and then other than that, like I'll just keep playing what I'm playing because these are quiet times. So that brings us to the end of this week's episode of the X Button. You can find me at _Joe on Twitter and at Alejandro Segovia 93 on Instagram /threads, and then you can find my written content, my old one, at my website, thecriticalcorner.com, and my newer written content over at seasongaming.com, where you can read my current reviews for this year, which is The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered, Grand Blue Fantasy Relink, Skull and Bones, Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth, Final Fantasy 16 The Rising Tide, TMNT Arcade Wrath of the Mutants, and Stellar Blade. And I haven't done a new review in like probably a few months, but then we'll probably start seeing more of my reviews like within the next month. And kind of like I already, to reiterate, instead of like the whole month break, I'm gonna be switching right now the show to bi-weekly. So no episode next week, but you're gonna receive a new episode the week after, and it's gonna be like bi-weekly until like Paul returns, and then we're gonna figure it out from there. So yeah, I will see you in the next 2 weeks. Thank you so much for listening to this brief episode of the X Button that I didn't even know was going to be able to be recorded based on some stuff that had been happening. But I always appreciate you. If you like what you listened or watch, give us a like and subscribe. Give it a share. Let us know what you liked about it or you didn't like about it in the comments below. And enjoy the rest of July as we're like getting close to the end of July and into the and the end of the summer into the fall. Touch some grass if you're able to. Hopefully you're not in tornado/hurricane affected places. Play as many games as you can and press X to play. Hasta la vista, baby.